All right, welcome back to another edition of the Done There, Been There podcast. I'm your host, Mike Hill. Of course, can't do this alone. I could, but it's better when I got my boy with me. Ephraim Salon.
Yeah, it'd be boring if you just sitting up here talking about yourself.
No, it wouldn't be boring. I don't think it'd be boring. I could talk about my relationships and give relationship advice all the time and whatnot. We can do that, right?
That's for another day.
I am such an expert at relationships. You got to hear more about that coming up on other episodes, man. But I'm so excited.
What not to do.
But that's what you're supposed to do sometimes. You got to tell people what not to do because of what you've gone through.
All right. Well,
because we've done there.
Stop. It's enough about us. We have a guest here.
Mm-hmm.
You guys go way back. We go way back, but you go way back.
We go back.
So why don't you give her proper introduction?
All right, we go back like members only jackets and Jerry curls. I mean, we go. This is like my cousin, my play cousin from another mother and father and everything else. This is my girl. I mean, she does it all. She's a journalist. She's an activist. She's an advocate. She's an author. She's a wife. This my mother right here. This is my girl. I call her Jay, but everybody knows her as Jemele Hill. She's in the house hanging out with us. What's up, Jay?
What's up, cuz? People really believe that for a while. Because to give the backstory, obviously my last name is Hill. Your last name is Hill. And so people, like, when we would say that publicly, people like, that's your cousin. I'd be like, it absolutely is.
Ain't that something? Hey, you know what? Call it out there. We was on ESPN together for a while.
A long time. Mm-hmm. Held it down over there. Mm-hmm. I mean, y'all play cousins. We all play cousins. We cousins.
We cousins, yes.
Because of that, I get confused with Michael Smith a lot. I get called out so much for Michael Smith because they thought we did the show together.
Oh,
it was Michael
are you
Smith.
serious?
Yeah,
oh, that's hilarious.
That's all good, man. Anytime I'm associated with you, it's just a pleasure because I'm so proud of you and who you are and whatnot. And that's how I want to start things off because I know sometimes when people look at me, they say he's a sportscaster. Mm-hmm. And I understand where they're coming from, but I think I'm so much more. And I want to broaden myself out and just try and branch out a little bit more. So how would you classify yourself? Because you've done it all. You're more than just a journalist. You got into activism, like I said, an author. How would you classify yourself?
Somebody used the term with me. They call me a cultural critic. And I was like, oh, I can embrace that. I can embrace that.
I like that.
But even though, just like you, like I do a lot of, producing, writing, all these other things, and talk about a myriad of subjects, the reality is that so much of it is still very much rooted in sports. So I'm not offended if somebody considers me a sports journalist or just, largely associates me with ESPN. That's fine because I still think that the power of sports is that it's the lens in which you can see the world. Mm-hmm. When I got into the business, of course, I wanted to cover cool events and cool athletes and talk about the games, the results, and argue about championships and who was better and all that. And that was great. But as my career matured, I really saw that the power of sports was just so impactful. It's one of the few things we do together. Mm-hmm. Like, we're a very segregated society. Mm-hmm. But, all three of us come from different places, grew up differently, different socioeconomic backgrounds. But if we're all Laker fans, we all Laker fans. Mm-hmm. Right? It doesn't matter where you come from. Yep. And that's the way.
We are all Laker fans.
No, we are not all Laker fans. Don't let these kids fool you.
I thought we were all in here together, but I guess not.
We're not. Mm-hmm. You see this shirt that says Detroit till I die. So I am a Pistons fan. Ooh. I know we're not relevant. That's all right. Talk y'all shit now. Get it in now. Because I'm telling you, that come up is going to be real. All right? Okay? So, but that's the thing. It's like sports bonds people together. And because of that, it gives you the perfect avenue to talk about race and politics and gender and all these different issues. And so that's why I think sports will forever be my base.
Well, that's perfect segue because today's topic is, cultural controversy.
Ooh.
Right?
Okay.
And I think the three of us sitting here can speak to that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we have things to say. You're very outspoken. Mm-hmm. And as people in society don't think certain people should have voices. Mm. Right?
Right.
And speak about politics or, there was a thing where a lot of people didn't like women talking about men's sports. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We can't talk about men's sports. You can't talk about politics. You can't talk about any of these things. And you find yourself in the middle of a society like that, and you like, look, I'm talking about everything. Like, how has that been for you dealing with some of the, the issues or the backlash about being so outspoken and opinionated?
The thing is, I don't really consider myself to be, I know people are going to probably laugh, but I don't consider myself to be particularly outspoken. Like, people act like I don't.
Really?
I don't.
Wait.
Hold on. We got the right
Y'all
guess here?
agreed a little too hard. Y'all just agreed a little too hard.
Okay, well, go ahead and continue. Explain.
You sneak up when I was talking about relationships.
I mean, that is true. Touche.
I gotta wear it.
The only reason why I say that, because I don't think I'm saying anything crazy, but I do think the messenger matters. And to your point, we have this very narrow way of looking at who gets to speak and who doesn't. And especially when you're black and you're a black woman and you speak on certain things, the firestorm is going to be different for you than if somebody else said it. Of course, a lot of people gave me a lot of shit because I said, and I need people to hear this because they missed this part of the sentence when I said it. A portion, a factor, a role. What does that mean? A little bit, a segment, just a piece of Caitlin Clark's popularity has to do with the fact that she's white and straight. Okay? A piece. It ain't taken away from that girl's accomplishment. We see, that woman's accomplishment. She's a dynamic shooter. She's a generational talent. But a piece of her popularity is that. Now, when I said it, it was like, oh my God, you said that. You saying she only got this because she white. Folks, played a role was the exact sentence, right? And so then later on, I see other people saying it who don't look like me. And it's like, oh yeah, that's a good point. Is it? Is it really? Is it really? Now it's a good point.
Right.
Much like, I guess the most famous incident when I called Donald Trump a white supremacist. When I said it, it was like, oh my God, how dare you? Now people say that shit like, this is some water.
Yeah. But what's the difference? That's select outrage, right?
Yeah.
It's select outrage,
Yes.
and people basically hear what they want to hear from who they want to hear from.
That second part, especially. It's like, who do they want to hear it from? And sometimes I'm not the ideal person that they want to hear it from. And I experienced this when I first became a columnist for the Orlando Sentinel, is that people would just react seeing my face. I could be writing about the flowers and how great they are. But as soon as they saw my face, they were like, you a racist. I'm like, but I just took a breath. Like, I didn't even do anything. Because they automatically assume, just based on what you look like, what your position is, or I know where you coming from with this, or if you even point out issues that I think are very substantial when it comes to talking about race and or gender and or the combination of them both. It's like, hence why I always, when I was a newspaper columnist, I always would tell some of my white colleagues, like, it would be great if you wrote about race. It would be great if you did. Because, like, I could say it 1,000 times. You might say it this one time, and it might have more impact than me saying it 1,000. Because we often don't see that.
What was their response to that?
Well, I think a lot of it was
scary,
trepidation, being scared, the reaction. And, and I've said that before about when we're in the thick of those conversations about race, is that a lot of times, I'm not saying every white person, again, not saying every white person.
Well, we're going to clip this up to where,
to where it seems like I'm saying every white person. It's okay.
We're going to do that.
I understand. You got followers, you got an audience you need to grow. I get it.
You got to go viral, baby.
You got to go viral, right? So often what prevents people from speaking up about these issues, some white people in particular, is that there's a level of ostracization that comes with that. Hopefully I said that right. It does. Like, it immediately ostracizes you from everybody else. Is that, oh, that's what you think? And some people aren't willing to face that for an opinion or for pointing out an injustice or pointing out something that's wrong, because it isolates you automatically. And, that's why when you hear those stories, and we've heard them before from white people, like, yeah, I was around this person and they said this. They dropped the N-word, and they just like, oh my God. But they don't say anything.
Yeah.
Why? Because as soon as you say something, people immediately know. This one different. I don't know. I don't know about that person. Even though it's obvious, you should say something, right?
Yes.
But that's not, it requires a level of fearlessness to do that. And a lot of people don't have that.
You say you're not outspoken, right? But you have a voice, and that's great. And you have a platform to speak from. Did you want this? I mean, this is something I understand you want to speak up for the people, whatnot, and you want to speak up for what's right. but you're a journalist. You know, you spoke about sports, whatever. You're not afraid to speak up. But is this something that you wanted, or is this something that just kind of came to you because of the first week? Now, I understand you've been outspoken about other things before, but what put you to another level was that tweet about Donald Trump.
So, and hopefully I have my my Godfather knowledge right, but I think it was what Hyman Roth, "This is the life that we've chosen," right? Okay. And what I would say is that before I sent that, yes, I was, I would clearly speak my mind. Hell, I was on a discussion show, a daily discussion show. That was the whole point of doing that. But the responsibility changed.
Okay.
It became a little different. And I think what I saw, or what it exposed, is that those of us who do have the platforms that we have, if we're willing to take on that responsibility, that there is, to me, for myself, I'm just speaking for me, I don't think everybody has to fall in line with this, is that there is a responsibility to speak up for those people who can't speak up for themselves. It's honestly the whole core tenet of journalism. It's why I became a journalist. Like, I didn't become one to make money, because it was very clear in the beginning that shit wasn't happening. Right? Like, I mean, I'm in college, and I think it was the U.S. News World Reporter that came out, they always list the top professions, and journalism was like 98th.
Yeah.
And the average salary for a journalist was $19,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so I still chose to do this.
Well, you can live in Detroit for $19,000.
Oh, see, he said that.
I'm gonna take that as disrespect. I'm gonna take that as disrespect.
I want to go back to Detroit.
I'm sorry.
You gonna get your ass up.
Look, the only reason
stop.
The only reason I say that is because I played one of my 13 years in the NFL. I played in Detroit, and I was like, "Oh, it's time to retire."
I'm waiting on.
But I want to explain. It was 2009.
Okay.
It was right after
the recession was still recession.
It just hit.
Yes.
The team went 0-16.
Well, yeah.
Right. They brought in new coaches and all that, and I was literally out there like, "Oh, this can't be real." It didn't feel
you
real.
You missed out on the come up. See what I'm saying?
I
just
hope
having a bad time. It doesn't mean it's a bad place.
It's not a bad place.
It was a bad time.
Motor City, it's Motown, and all of that. It's wonderful.
You know, it's gonna be a whole bunch of people outside the studio.
I'm just saying, bro.
They're like, "Come outside, we ain't gonna jump you." I mean, I'm just saying.
Come on outside, man. Come on. We just want to talk to you.
I go back and forth with Rob Parker all the time about Detroit, and he's consistently trying to throw in the towel. He's spent most of his career. Exactly.
I've known Rob since I was a teenager, but the whole thing is that, like, being from Detroit, like you asked me about my voice, that is part of the early origin of my voice. Only because a lot of people had that opinion of Detroit the entire time I was growing up. Like, we only wound up on the national news for bad things, typically when they released the murder rate, right? Because Detroit was usually number 1 or in the top 5. And that was all people knew about the city. And so people from Detroit, I know everybody puts on for their city. I would take a Pepsi challenge against any city about putting on for your city, because we don't get the glitz and glam of Atlanta, of Chicago, of all these other places who, frankly, they crime just as bad as ours.
Yep.
But people don't associate them with crime and with all that and with pink suits the way they do with us, right? It's like, they don't. And so we have to constantly tell people about the good things that come out of Detroit. So that's why I always rep Detroit the way that I do. Let people know, like, good shit comes from our city, right? Like, and not just, Motown. We created a whole music genre, all right? Not just Motown, but a lot of great things come from Detroit. And especially now, you probably wouldn't recognize it. Like, it's different.
It is.
I'm still grasping the ways in which it's different.
Do you live there now currently?
I don't live there now, but all my friends.
Off to the top.
I go to Detroit.
The disrespect.
It's gonna disrespect my
I'm
make sure you put this on and make sure you tag him especially.
I'm just letting you know, don't get Mike Hill confused with Ephraim.
Look, I love Detroit.
I love you to death.
I love Detroit. I just I didn't like playing there at the time. I'm happy what's going on with the team there.
Yeah.
Right now, Dan
the
Campbell
city itself has
and they love their sports teams there.
They do.
I just didn't have a good time there.
I mean,
but I
understand.
Look, first of all, I was on the team after they went winless.
Okay. Okay, so you missed the winless.
I did miss that.
But the stench was still there.
The stench was there. But speaking of stench, you being outspoken or not comes with a lot of hate.
Yes.
All right. And the advent of social media literally puts that hate in your lap. How has it been dealing with, I mean, just a barrage of people just vehemently, opposed to your views and saying some of the most hateful things every time you step up and you speak your mind?
Well, in this regard, I'm glad, being a woman of a certain age, that I didn't grow up with social media, right? Like, I've always had like a corporate job since social media existed, and so it was something I could always take or leave, But I realized in today's world, like for the young people that came up in generations behind me, it's like truly their street corner, right? It's like that is where they mingle. That's where all that stuff happens. So I think because I lived long without it, that I don't take it as seriously, right? I mean, it gets annoying. The hatred gets more annoying than something that I stay rooted in, because people have to understand, if you see me clap back on Twitter, that one comment is representing 100 that I've gotten. And it just got to a point like, cut the shit. All right, now I gotta go at you. Like, now I'm gonna give you all that attention you order, and you're not gonna like it. And they normally do. It usually winds up in a deleted tweet, a deleted account, or because people, once I bring my mob on it, then it's gonna be different. So I appreciate my street vigilantes or my social media vigilantes out there. So that, in that regard, it is. What is more problematic is that stuff does bleed into real life. And so I've had some incidents, I mean, not with people running up on me because they know better. And as I often tell them, my husband's 6'2", and a licensed gun owner. So try it if you want to. Right, okay?
And she from the D, y'all.
Run up when you see me and we gonna see.
You know what I'm saying? I was like, don't let that ESPN on the resume fool you. That shit gonna be real different if you try to jump stupid on me, like, in public. But just in terms of issues of my safety, and in terms of, like, we had an incident recently. I don't want to give too many details about it, but let's just say that the police had to be called.
Oh wow!
Because of
was that out and about? Was it in public?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't in public. It was just about something that came to my house, and so and so things like that is where the dynamic changes, and it wasn't the first time. Like when I lived in Hartford, when I working at ESPN, like they had the flags of mail because it was some weird powder in it that was addressed to me. I've had FBI has been called for some stuff. Like one year they thought I was at the Big Ten championship game when Michigan State was in it. I wasn't there. It was in Indianapolis. Because they had received a credible threat on my life. And you know how ESPN security works, right? Like, they own it. And so they were going to remove me because the threat was that serious. So it's stuff like that. That's the kind of thing that the hatred and all of that drums up, and where that, tweet about Trump really changed my life, because that was not something, I never had to really give a second thought to public safety that way. Right. But now it's like a second and a third thought, to where I have to, take a lot of effort to make sure that people don't know where I live and all that kind of stuff. So when that little surprise showed up, it was very disconcerting, because I know the steps that we've taken to make sure that people don't know that kind of information.
Disconcerting, and I understand that your husband is always there to protect you, and you got, like you said, your mom behind you, but do you ever get scared? I mean, just if you were human.
Yeah, mostly, I think the scarier part is that people, the people that may not like me or may not like me enough to where they feel like they have to threaten my physical safety, they know what I look like. I don't know what they look like. So, sometimes even when I'm in public, if like somebody's staring too long or looking, like mostly I think it's like, oh, I think I recognize her, right? Like totally harmless.
But there's a little paranoia.
But there's a little in the back of your mind, like, why are they staring?
Right,
like, what
right.
are they, like, where is this going? You know, or even when people approach me, it's like, I'm a little wary because I'm like, I don't know what they're about to say to me right now. And so in that regard, it kind of changes, you know, how you operate. Like we were just talking off air about my addiction to golf, right? It's like, so, you know, like I have some, you know, some plastic golf balls, you know, I would love to practice my chipping in my yard, but I can't because then people would know where I live. Like if people are walking by.
Right.
And because that kind of thing don't stay secret for long. And so like, I'm like, I can't even hit, you know, some bullshit ass chip shots in my yard because I'm afraid somebody might see me, you know? And that's something actually, honestly, my husband kind of brought to my attention. He's like, you know, you can't go outside and do this. And I was like, you're probably right.
Well, to that point, I mean, it's got to take a mental toll on you. And in an era where we're really, you know, focusing and now speaking out loudly about mental health, what are some of the things that you do to help stay sane, to keep yourself from mentally going into like a deep dive or a pit?
Well, my husband's a big piece of this. Like he's an amazing support system for me, and so you know, and that's something that that's somebody I'm with every day, you know, all day for the most part, and it's why I vacation as hard as I do. I've been to almost 40 countries. It's like I got
can't hide money.
Why you be coming for me?
I'm just saying. I'm vacation too. We all be vacationing up here.
Right.
The sun hit differently with the hell go though.
But it is why, and why typically I always vacation out of the country because it's a chance to unplug and get away from this sometimes hellscape and like be able to like really appreciate, you know, life and just enjoy and be present and be in the moment. Because a lot of times you're in foreign countries, like I ain't going out of my way to get the data plan and all that, you know, kind of stuff. You know, sometimes I do just because we might need to find something or look something up or whatever. But generally speaking, it's also an opportunity to get away from the cellular device.
Yes.
And so for me, it just, every time I go somewhere, it just cleanses my spirit and it recharges me. And I feel like, okay, whatever I'm facing when I come back, I feel much more, you know, capable of handling that. And yeah, I mean, I have a therapist. So like, yes, all of those things that really help me in terms of trying to find, I won't say work-life balance because that's a lie. It is a lie.
I've been looking for that, man.
It just, for most driven, ambitious people, like that is a lie. And so the principle I do follow is something that I heard in my yoga class once, where my yoga instructor said, just give me 100% of your 10%. Right? So if in the work-life balance, I know I only have, you know, 30% I could dedicate to something not work or whatever, I'm giving 100% to that 30%. So that's sort of a guiding principle for me.
Have you figured out who your leaves and your branches are on your tree? Because I know when I went through...
You getting deep.
Real deep.
I mean, this is the analogy because you heard Tyler Perry talking about, like, in life, you know, you have your branches, you have leaves. When the wind comes, the leaves will leave. And then some people will have branches, but you can only step out on a branch so far before the branch breaks. But you have the people that are your roots, the trees that stick with you through it all. When I went through what I went through over the last couple of years with the divorce and everything that was happening in my life, I realized there was a sense of discernment that I had to have when it came to certain friends that would be with me during the good times and the bad times. It's easy to hang out with you when you're popular, you're famous, you're on certain networks or whatever, but when you're going through controversy and people are coming for you and you become a polarizing figure or whatnot, some people like you, some people don't, then all of a sudden you find out that the friends that you thought you had before don't call you anymore. So, and I've gone, since this is the Done There, Been That podcast, Been There, Done That, what is Done There, Been That podcast, I gotta remember that. This is what I've gone through. I'm wondering if someone like you has gone through something like that.
Well, one thing I've had a knack for, good or bad, is like, I don't expect the same the same things from every friend,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I compartmentalize a lot of my relationships, and that's not to speak badly of those people, but everybody ain't supposed to fit in your life the same way.
Right.
Like some people are just there for a season.
Mm.
Some people are just there to help you get to a certain place, maybe mentally, maybe physically, professionally, wherever it may be, and then that's it. So my expectations for, say, our friend Kelly Carter, me and Kelly been down for 30 years now. We were college roommates.
Right.
That's my dog. That's a root, right? The expectations I have for her would not be for somebody maybe I've only known a couple years. Like, I don't expect that friend to be down for me the same way. We able to be cool, but because I've level set the friendship, I'm not expecting more, right? And so, so I even with family, like there's some people I'm just like, you family, I don't fuck with you like that. But we family is good, but I don't have that expectation that you're gonna be that ride or die family member.
Right,
Like
right.
you ain't, everybody ain't riding for you like your mama. Not gonna happen. And you met my mama.
God, I know your mama.
You know my mama.
I know your mama.
Right? My mama 10 toes down, right?
Jemele is tame compared to her. I love her mama to
That's why
death.
you think I'm outspoken. Good God. If you met Denise, So I say all that to say is that you are correct. It's like you see the people that come in and out of your lives, and I guess I am able to generally identify those people. So it's like I don't really lean into them like that anyway.
So you've never been disappointed by somebody that wasn't?
You know what? I have. I have been
okay,
disappointed.
okay.
I certainly have. Because there's been a couple friendships where I'm like, dang, I ain't see it coming out like that. But now that I see how it is, it's just sort of like, all right, that's just kind of how it is.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that it wasn't like hurtful. That doesn't mean it wasn't something unexpected. But what it does mean to me is that maybe what I thought were roots were leaves. And so I was like, okay, maybe that wasn't how I saw this. Maybe we didn't see this mutually, if you will. So
You said something there that I think as we get older, we understand. Before our young listeners and viewers, about, all your friends, they don't bring the same energy to the table, right? And I think people have this expectation of their friend group, their peer group, that everybody's supposed to be the same.
Right.
Right? Like the person I've known for 10 years and the person I just met are known for 2 years, come to the table with the same intent, the same energy. And the crazy part about that is the person you've known for a shorter time can bring energy you need more.
Absolutely.
Might be more down for you than the person that you know.
And I
for
think
a new season.
hearing you explain it the way you did, it makes sense. And I hope our listeners and viewers get a chance to take something from that, because we get caught up in the world of, friends coming and going, and it devastating us. Right? Like, how could you, or I can't believe I've known you since, and you start, and what it does is it pulls at you and it yanks at you, and you start questioning who you are as a person. I've gone through things like that where somebody in your friend group tries to turn everybody else in the friend group against you, and you're just like, wait.
You done been through some
drama. But the crazy part is then you start as an individual. I'm like, well, damn, am I
this person?
Is it me?
Am I the problem?
It wasn't. But that goes to, especially the more successful you are, the more people view that you owe them.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because, like, I will say I've been very fortunate that I have not gone through that particular experience, but I know so many people that have, and it's really disheartening. And it could be like the breakup of a friendship is so much different than the breakup of a relationship. Yeah. I think the case can be made the friendship one hurts a lot worse.
Well, yeah.
I mean, because it is probably unexpected. It is because of the level of expectation. It is because of a lot of things. But, generally, I think as I got more known, more famous, if you want to call it that.
Oh, it's famous.
Oh, you're famous.
Okay, no, it's
Yeah.
As I
famous.
got more famous,
Oh.
then-
They know your name. That's why I say famous. I tell people I'm not famous, I'm familiar.
I like that.
I'm like, famous people, you know their name. Right? Me, I'm like,
you look out.
You look like somebody, right?
I'm familiar. You famous.
As I got more famous, like I've still stayed the same, but you do see how it changes people around you.
That part.
Right? And I think the change is that like they struggle to deal with the fact like if we go out to dinner and people recognize me or whatever, like there's gonna be interruptions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just kind of what it is. There's gonna be picture taking, or sometimes, and you know how people do, Mike. It's like they'll treat the people that you're with like they're your assistant.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so like adjusting to that part, and which is why I have certain. I had realized I had to set the boundaries. Like one of my biggest boundaries is my husband is not my picture taker. So like if you want a picture with me, he's not taking it.
Ooh,
Like,
I like
simple
that.
as that, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to be really fucking famous, like to the point where it's just like even he'll be like, yeah, I got this, and he didn't set that rule. He didn't even ask me to do it. It's just something I was like, you know what? Because I know it would be a constant thing. I know that people would be like, hey man, can you? No. You better get this selfie or it ain't happening. Or find somebody else. You know. So like. I wanted to be very clear in establishing that boundary. It's like he is not my assistant. He is not the picture taker. He is not holding your stuff. He ain't doing none of that. Like this is my husband. This is my equal partner.
Ian is like Debo, bro. That's what we walk around. Ian didn't smile the first like 3 times I met him.
Whatever he is.
I'm like, we like cousins, like right? You know, this is my girl, but this is not my girl.
We play cousins, man. We play
I
cousins.
give her a hug because I love her. We work together.
You know what? You're not gonna do him.
Look, okay, so how long you guys been married?
So this is year 5.
Okay.
Yeah, the year 5 in November.
We had a discussion.
Oh,
Wait. I'm really big on relationships.
Okay.
All right. I've been with my wife for 21 years.
Oh, wonderful.
We've been married 18 years.
Okay.
Just
That's
Can you believe that bullshit?
It's an anomaly in this day and
Some
time.
of us gotta try a couple times.
But you did not take your husband's last name.
How do you know that?
I'm asking you, did you or
Yeah,
did you
I
not?
did.
You did.
I did.
But her professional name is still Jemele
Correct.
Hill.
This is like a
Okay.
stage name.
She's Wallace.
So we were
You know
having.
people?
You all up in the. Hey,
Everybody
man.
know his.
Well, no,
Yeah,
everything.
shit.
Well, they do now.
Well, they know
Thanks,
his
Mike.
name. We
There's
said
my little anonymity.
It's really easy to find.
Yeah, I know.
It's a
It
Google
is.
search. We got AI and everything now.
Was that a conversation or was it just like when we get married, I'm, taking your name?
It was something I wanted to do.
Okay.
And
Let's speak on that.
It was
Let's
something
speak
I
on
wanted
that.
to do, and but it was nothing. Yes, he actually had the opposite expectation. He thought I was going to keep it because he's thinking professionally.
Right.
He's like, you spent 20 plus years building this name in your profession, and people know you as this. He never expected me to change it, but I was just like, no, I want to change it, but professionally, I will be known,
Of course.
as this. And he was like, no, I totally, get it. So I guess if I wasn't famous, that would have been a problem. I'm just kidding. But yeah, like it was something I wanted to do. I didn't want to hyphenate. No disrespect to the people that do. I didn't want to add it on there. And it's not that my name didn't mean anything to me, but to me it was more important as I entered this new adventure, a new phase, and with this new person who I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, that it was a symbol of the commitment that I have to. We're family now, so I wanted it. That was the reason why I did it. I do now understand, having gone through the process, why women when they get divorced don't change that shit back, because I'm telling you, listen. I ain't going back. Like, oh my God. He was like, you got to be kidding me.
It's a lot to go through.
Like, can we just get to the point where we could press one button and it just does everything? I mean,
so, right?
Oh my God. It was such a pain in the ass, and especially because I had to do a lot of it during the height of the lockdown of the pandemic, because we got married November 2019. So we were just months away from the entire world changing. And so going through getting the passport, like all of that, it was like, oh my God, this is just a pain.
How long did you guys date before you got married?
So we met in 2014. and we started going together in 2015. But we were dating, but we both came into it. Which is why I always tell people the best way to find a relationship is not look for one. And so when we started dating, we both were like, I don't want a relationship. You know, we sounded like Darius and Nina in Love Jones. That ain't my girl. We just kicking it, right? You know what I'm saying?
Just kicking.
And then over time, and we were also long distance. So we were long distance for about 4 years before we both moved to Los Angeles together.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and then he proposed like 2 months later.
How did he propose?
So it was wonderful. I was totally surprised, even though we had been talking about marriage. So I assume he knew I was going to say yes when he asked me. But he told me, because we were headed out of town to St. Martin to hang out with some friends for Christmas and New Year's. And he told me that he had gotten a Groupon. He had gotten a Groupon for a helicopter ride to see all of Los Angeles. Like, we're new Los Angeles residents, and we had talked about doing a helicopter ride, and we were just like, we're gonna do all the crazy tourist shit, you know, just to kind of get it out of the way. Even though we had been coming to LA for years, we never got a chance to do any of the tour stuff. So he's like, yeah, I got this Groupon for this helicopter ride, and it was 2 other friends that were supposed to do it with us. And so, you know, the day of the helicopter ride, I think I had a hair appointment, and I was just like, I don't really feel like doing this. He was like, but I got this Groupon, and you know, you gotta do it. I was like, fine, we'll do this helicopter ride. So we go to the place, and I was like, where are the 2 other friends? He was like, oh, they running late, so they said we could just go up. And I was like, oh, okay. So there was a photographer, and he said, yeah, the photographer, they want to know, is it cool because of, you know, because you're a media personality, if they take some photos, because they want to put it on the website. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's fine. Right. So we go up, and it's beautiful. We're all around the city, and the helicopter lands. The pilot says, like, hey, we're going to land on top of this building. It's like, kind of overlooks Echo Park, you know, whatever, so you guys get a nice view, this and that. And so we're up on top of this essentially skyscraper, this tall ass building, and we're up there looking at the view. The sun is setting, and he was like, oh, do you see that over there? And he's pointing somewhere off in the distance, and I was like, see what? And like, I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, that over there. And I was like, what? And so I'm looking, and I'm like this, like the meme. I'm like, huh? You know, just looking. And then I turned around, and he was on one knee. And he had the ring in his hand.
I'm tearing up.
Right, he had the ring in his hand. The photographer was there to take pictures.
Yes.
And we had 2 vacations back to back. So my birthday's in December. So every birthday we surprised each other with a vacation. So I had no idea. We went to the Cayman Islands, right? So we had just come back from the Cayman Islands.
Okay.
And while we were there, he was like, oh, you should treat yourself to a spa day. Go get your nails done. He wanted me to get my nails done because he was proposing. And he wanted it to look right on the finger. And at first I was like, I'll get a massage. I don't know if I feel like getting the whole pedicure treatment right now. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. That's fine.
No, so I got a Groupon. You go get your.
No, right? Like, if only he had said he had a Groupon, I would have did it. But I did do it. And you know, he knew I had a hair appointment or whatever. So it's like he wanted to make sure I looked my best. But he did it so covertly with the help of Kelly. Okay. By the way,
all right.
She was an op. She helped the whole operation.
Have a best friend there.
That's why. And so so he proposed on the rooftop.
Shout out to Ian, man.
Yes, he did.
2 things I've taken from that. Number 1, I like him.
Okay.
He's cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Because
he smiles now, though.
Yeah. You know what?
Because the effort.
Yes.
Right.
I
think relationships require effort. And effort doesn't necessarily mean heavy lifting. It just means you gotta put effort into something you love, that you want to grow, that you want to cultivate. Most people are lazy, just innate in life.
Well, that's why people are super amazed when I tell them that we were long distance for 4 years. They're like, how did you do that for that long?
That's tough. That's effort.
But that wasn't, once we made the commitment, and he loves to tell the story because I did ask him to go with me. It was me.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. But he was leaning in that direction. I mean, we were already at the point where and finally I was just like, all right, you know, let's do this. And I gave him a whole little, speech. And I was just like, because I know how things are. We were dating. We never, made a commitment not to see other people. I didn't ask. He didn't ask. I mean, as far as like, I didn't even care because I'm like, whoever, if he got another chick, she ain't getting no time, like at all.
Right.
So it's like, until you have that conversation, then it's not official till it's official, right?
Yeah.
So I told him, I was just like, hey, I have feelings for you. I want to do this. I want to do this for real, like where it's just us. And I was like, if you have some situations you need to handle, some people you need to talk to, go and talk to them. But he was like, nah, I'm good. I'm ready, to do this. So like I feel he should propose since I was the one who technically got the relationship started.
He was on his grown man shit.
He was, yeah, definitely. We both were. Like we were at the age where like all that silly shit.
Ain't nobody no time for no jet, no games, ain't
nothing at all. So it was very, very smooth.
One of the things I like what you said about is like he's not your picture taker. You know what I mean? It's really tough. And once again, done there, been that. It's tough being in a relationship with somebody who's famous and or even more famous than you.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I'm gonna say I would love to. Were there boundaries that were set?
No, I took all the damn pictures, man. No, but that was I had no problem with that. A lot of times, people feel, no, I want you in the picture tonight. No, you really want the picture.
You trying
to make me feel good.
Right.
I'll take the picture, whatever. But I love that because I was promoting Cynthia. You know what I mean? And that was all good, and she loved her fans, whatever. But it's also tough sometimes because I had developed and created my own identity for so many years before that, which I didn't mind being Cynthia's boo. I didn't mind because I was her husband. I was there for her and I was supporting. So if you knew me from that was great. But does it affect at all? And you got to be a very secure man.
Correct.
To have that type of personality and that attitude. Does it ever affect in any sort of way that you're so famous, you're so known, and once again sometimes everybody wants your attention and sometimes you can be left on the side?
A big test before I asked him to go with me was I took him to the ESPYs. And that was a really big test because I had a friend who took a date to the ESPYs and it was disastrous. And it was disastrous because and this is somebody who was like a professional who you would have thought was accomplished enough to feel secure in those type of rooms, was not the case at all.
Wow.
And he kind of embarrassed her. And I was like, but she knew, at least she knew, she was like, never
again.
again.
This ain't gonna work.
This ain't the one.
This ain't the one.
Yep.
Keep it moving. And so even though every signal pointed to the fact that he was secure, could hold his own. Because one thing I definitely loved, like when we were in the getting to know each other phase, he never asked me one question about ESPN. Like he wasn't, because sometimes, and it's funny because me and Carrie Champion, we used to talk about this all the time, is that we would, you run into basically fanboys. Not like fanboys of the network, of other personality. Like if I'm out with you and you're like, what's Stephen A. Smith like? Like, what? Is he on the date with you right now? Like,
groupies come in all genders.
I'm telling you. And so we would just be like, we would just talk about how unattractive that he is, and so he never did that. Like, he didn't ask me anything about like, what's it like to be on Around the Horn? Like, he never did that. And I peeped that early and I was like, ooh, I really like that. And our first date was at an ESPN function. Because we actually met at we both went to Michigan State, but he's 5 years younger, so we were there at different times. And we met at homecoming because I went back. I was Grand Marshal of the homecoming parade, and we met at the Black Alumni Tailgate. And
he was just graduating.
I mean,
damn. I ain't say nothing. You said it, but
I mean, I like being a cougar.
Ain't no wrong. No, you ain't a cougar.
I mean,
am
I like a puma?
Yeah, like a puma. Yeah, a little small puma. Because he didn't go to high school with you, man. You know what I'm saying? If y'all ain't go to high school at the same time,
but we didn't know.
I know. That's what I'm saying. 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years.
It would have been 4 years if you would have been a senior. He was a freshman.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything after that? Because he was still in middle school. He was about to graduate.
He was like, I could have pulled your 8th grade. I was like,
technically,
that never could have happened. But so we met, at homecoming, and we were just, exchange information. One, he called the next day. He didn't do that whole I'm gonna wait and see and all this. Called the next day. We had a great conversation, and we were just talking just over the course of the next week or so. And he was like, yeah, I got this work trip, because we were thinking about when are we gonna see each other. He's like, yeah, I got this work trip in LA, and so I got to do that, and then maybe after that I was like, well, I got a work trip in LA, and he was like, well, actually I'm in Orange County. I was like, Actually, I'm in Orange County. It was the ESPNW Summit.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and so that his company is is headquartered 15 minutes from where the summit.
wow.
Like
Wow.
it's very close. So he was staying in the area at the same time. So then our first date, I asked him to come over to the hotel of the main hotel where the summit was taking place. So he comes in there and it's like Sarah Spain, like all these women, and it was like the bar was nothing but women, right? Nothing but women. And so it's like Sarah Spain, Sage Steele, like all the ESPN personalities are there. And I was like, yeah, meet me in the bar for a drink, and because that was pretty. Like that wasn't a full commitment. Like if this is whack, then it's like it's a drink. You can leave. We're not like at a sit down dinner or anything like that. And I never forget when he came in and when he came into the bar and he's sitting there, I could see Sarah Spain in my eyesight, and she was like. And she had her hands up, you know what I'm saying? I was like,
well, y'all at shit, man.
You don't have the backup plan just in case. Hey, like 10 minutes in,
Like,
tap me on the
text
shoulder
me and say I got to do something.
I know. I know. I had the backup plan.
You had the backup.
The backup plan was because I'm at a conference.
Okay.
I'd be like, man, I got an early session
panel.
tomorrow.
You got a panel.
I got
Gotta
a
get to the
panel.
panel.
Right,
Yep.
yeah.
No, that was totally
There it is. Okay, you
going
already
to
knew.
be my backup plan. Like, that's what it was. But yeah, we were able to make it work, and luckily he had a flexible work schedule. So when we went to Dallas for the national championship, like he came and like we were able to just do things throughout the course of our relationship in building it. And so the distance, while wasn't ideal, it was never to the point where like I can't do this anymore. Because the eventual plan after we got so serious was to like, how can we be in the same space?
Yeah.
It helps to be busy too when you both busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. But like to your point, I took him to the ESPYs and like seeing, we went to like LeBron's after party. It's like, I think Future performed. I think it was, but at LeBron after party, is every manner of celebrity is there,
and everybody knows you,
and everybody knows
coming up
me.
to you
And he
taking
was like
pictures with
super
you.
cool. He wasn't up there trying to take pictures with everybody. He didn't even break out his phone or anything. He just having regular conversations.
He's a real dude.
With people because he is a real dude.
Yeah, I love it. We got to wrap things up in a second. I did want to ask you one more question before we get to our defining question. You, once again, you're in this role right now. Is there anything that you would have done differently? Is there anything that, I don't like to say regrets, I'd say life lessons. Mm-hmm. But is there anything that if you had the chance to do it all over again? And how tough is it actually be the voice, the culture critic?
Sometimes, it's tough because you can't give your attention equally to everything. Mm-hmm. And then so people have this expectation that if something's happening over here, like, why ain't you speaking up on that? Or where were you on that? It's like, bro, I got a whole life, man. I know I may tweet, but it's not glued to this. Like, I have other things I need to do. And the things I care about, I want to make sure that I invest in it in terms of understanding the full scope of what I'm talking about. And so I'm not chiming in on every geopolitical issue. Like, that's I know my lanes, okay? And so that part can be a little like, okay, whatever. But in terms of like, I don't believe in regrets at all. I don't. And I know we had the conversation off air about your basketball football choice because I truly think that the decisions you make lead you to a point for a reason.
Right.
And the reality is, had I not, had the Trump thing never happened, the Trump thing eased the path for me to leave ESPN. And I think what would have potentially happened had that not happened is that I would have finished out my contract there, which would have been at that point, I was in the first year of a 4-year deal. So that's another 3+ years that I'm there. And I think it was making me complacent because you know how easy it is. That check come in 2 weeks, you just like, I'm good, right?
Yeah.
And so all these other dreams that I had for myself were things I kept putting off after my ESPN time is over. I don't know when that would have been, right? Because I'm sure I would have just kept taking contract after contract until they stopped paying me. And more likely than not, which happens to most people, is that, you don't get to leave on your own terms.
Right.
I got to truly leave on my own terms. And so...
And let's make that clear because
yes, because people think I got fired. I'm like, I didn't get fired.
Yeah.
They literally offered me 2 different opportunities before I told them, hey, I think the relationship has reached this course. Like, we're good. And I went to them to say that. And so just like I went to them to get off SportsCenter because in my deal, I was contractually obligated to do SportsCenter and did not have to do anything else.
Right.
So it's like having a no trade clause.
Right.
I had to go to them and say, hey, I'm willing to lift the no trade clause because I want out of SportsCenter. Right. So if that Trump thing doesn't happen, then I don't know that, thinking about my relationship and my marriage and how that's so important to me, I'm not saying we wouldn't have gotten married. What I'm saying is that it would have just been a lot harder because I'd have been in Connecticut, which, the way you diss Detroit is how I diss Connecticut. I wouldn't have wished.
I did a 9-year bid there.
Man, I did a 4.5-year bid, dog. And I was like, and it's a reason we call it a bid.
A bid.
Right? It's like, nah. Right? So then what would that have looked like for us? But as a result of the decision to leave ESPN, I got to finally pick where I wanted to live.
Right.
I've never been able to do that my entire career.
Wow.
We own a beautiful home in Los Angeles. Never would have thought I would be a homeowner in Los Angeles because y'all know how hard that is, right?
Hide money.
Now, I know y'all.
Money.
Hey, look.
Why
I ain't
y'all
never
acting like
been.
y'all broke?
That's my
That's
cousin.
my
I'm not saying I'm broke. I'm just saying
We ain't got that kind
we
of
double vacations. I'm just running over the list of things we talked about.
She imported sunshine, bro.
I'm
Kinda got
like,
that
helicopter rides. Hey,
Don't need Groupons no more.
Hey,
By the way, he did not get that helicopter ride on Groupon.
It ain't no helicopter rides on Groupon. I know.
I was gonna say what happened.
I'm
I got
like,
somebody coming in. I'm trying to
We
get
did
that
not.
myself. Okay.
But the whole point is like I look at the life that we have been able to create for ourselves in Los Angeles, and that would not have happened without that. So no, I wouldn't do anything differently because if all of this leads to what I have now, I wouldn't change anything.
I love it.
And I feel that way about my whole life, not just about then. I mean, as I wrote about this a lot in my memoir, I had a bit of a tough upbringing. My mom is a recovering addict. My dad was a recovering addict. And so as difficult as it was to see, more so my mom, because my dad was clean by the time he sort of reemerged, I guess, in my life. But witnessing my mother go through addiction, as painful and as hard as that was, I know she would have a different perspective because she does have a different perspective. As much as that, as hard as that was to live through an experience, I would not change it. Because I think part of those lessons, growing up on welfare, seeing that is what allowed me to be the voice that I am now. Like I understand, like when I speak very passionately about, poverty and the cycle of poverty, I know because I lived it.
Right.
I understand what that looks like. And so speaking about, addiction or just coming from difficult circumstances, because people can be very judgmental and very unforgiving. Like, I know what that is.
Right.
I know what that looks like. And so I wouldn't change any of that because I feel like all of those things led me to this. And
Gives
so,
you a tougher skin.
yeah, it does. It gives you a tougher skin. It gives you perspective. And as yes, while the Trump stuff upended my life in the moment, and I guess in many ways was a fork in terms of changing certain things and how I live my life. The reality of it is that like I wouldn't even change that, and it's not even in the top 25 of worst things that's happened to me. And I wouldn't even qualify that. I was like, if, again, I can read my memoirs called Uphill, still available wherever books are sold. But some of the things that I revealed in that memoir, that Donald Trump shit is nothing.
Yep. People don't realize what you've gone through.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, oh yeah,
you're prepared for it. You're ready for it.
Some buffoonish, president talking about me on Twitter. So
Right,
basically, it's like,
and,
so okay, that is nothing compared to, seeing your mom at some of her worst moments.
Right.
And so, no, so that's why I say I don't believe in regrets.
I love that because I always say, once again, don't have, I got this from Cynthia actually, don't have regrets, have life lessons. You have life lessons. And I believe your burdens, your so-called burdens, become your blessings if you learn the lessons.
That is a word, and that is the truth.
If you learn the lessons, burdens become
truth.
Blessings if you learn the lessons.
Yeah, because I even tell like young people, like young journalists I talk to, I was like, the biggest reason I wound up in college was poverty. Because back then, the student, like the federal government, they used to have Pell Grants, but they back student loans,
Yes.
right? And so I got a full financial package because my mama was broke,
Yeah.
right? And I had an academic scholarship as well on top of that. So when I came out of school, because between the academic scholarship, my wonderful Pell Grant, I owed less than probably $10,000, like somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000.
Wow.
That wouldn't have happened.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
So,
That's good
like you
perspective.
said, those burdens, they become blessings.
Yes, perspective. Well, our final segment is called Unfiltered, and you about unfiltered.
The final segment?
I know.
I was like, okay.
Jay is like a Camel cigarette. She has no filter. You remember Camel cigarettes back in the day?
Oh my God.
No filter
Just
right
age
there.
us, why don't you?
Straight cancer.
See, I know, right? Straight. No chaser. It's like,
It's
okay.
the Done There, Been That podcast. Do you have a defining moment where you can say you've done there, been that?
Ooh. Well, I'm trying to think of it almost in the inverse. Like, the whole point is like something that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it like sort of like disastrous relationships come to mind immediately?
It changes your life.
It does.
Well, for me, it does.
Well, but like you said,
yeah, well,
not regrets.
Not regrets.
Life
Life
lessons.
lessons.
Life lessons. And
Untold
so
lessons.
I was in.
I had to pay a lot of alimony, but still going through it. Okay, it's okay. I'm sorry.
Luckily, I did
I'm healing.
not. That's
I'm
right.
healing.
You have to just keep saying that to yourself. Is that I'm healing. One thing, even though, again, as everybody does, especially for women, you kiss a lot of frogs before the prince comes along. And one thing that I've told, especially women who are my age, I'm, on the other side of 45, and there's this...
Really?
I am. I know.
Okay.
I am older than I look. Okay?
Life on crack.
And you know that. And
Age
so...
don't age.
One thing that I've told a lot of women, especially black women, especially across 40, they make you seem like you're unwanted, that you are not viable, that it's not going to happen if it happens already. I got married at 43, right? And I am grateful I got married at that age because I think about all the mistakes that I made in relationships. And I honestly, to be 100% unfiltered, I didn't even realize they were really mistakes until I got in this relationship. And the reason I didn't is because I finally had an accountability partner. And I did not have one before. And so I was able to do shit that, like, I frankly probably shouldn't have been doing. And I'm not talking about cheating or anything, because that was never really, my MO. I cheated in one relationship that I had very early. And I know, like,
Yeah, I ain't gonna speak on that shit. I'm gonna keep my
I
mouth
cheated in
shut.
one relationship. I didn't even get caught. And I was like, never again.
It happens. Let me just say it. It happens to the best of us.
It does. I was
it
like,
doesn't define who you are.
No, it does not.
Yeah.
I am proof of that. I was like, after that, I was like, nah, because that's too much stress. I'm like, I ain't doing all that. I'm just going to tell people what it is.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'd rather you make an informed decision and then we go on from there. But anyway, I say all that to say is that because, what is it? What did you call it? Done there, been that? Right? Because I had done those things and been that person in those relationships and not really been held accountable, it made me so much better once I got with somebody that was an accountability, partner. Because then I was able to see, like, oh wow, they say, what is it? That marriage is a reflection, right? And it really showed me who I am, in a lot of regards in terms of relationships. So I'm thankful that I had done some of those things, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't be where I am now.
We are so happy to have you here.
Absolutely.
Right now. I tell you this every time I see you. I love you. I am so proud of you. Thank you for everything that you do, not only for our culture, but for our friendship, for everything that you are and everything that you will continue to be. And we thank Ian as well, because he holds down his queen, because he's a big he smiles now because he knows me. So I'm thankful that he's smiling now. But thank you for making us laugh. Thank you for making us think. Thank you for making us just be better people in this culture, man, because you're a queen.
Well, I appreciate that. Those are really thoughtful words. And one thing I'm trying to be better at is receiving. Like
Receive
these kind words.
Go take these flowers.
Yeah, and take them because they always feel a little bit uncomfortable. Despite being a media personality, I don't always enjoy being the center of attention. In fact, I rarely enjoy being the center of attention. And so, but I am learning in this season of my life to like really appreciate when people say those things, right? Because it could be the opposite.
And you got so much more going on too.
Yeah.
Like, you about to write a children's book?
Yeah, I have a children's book that's coming out next year. That is.
Jay write the children's book.
I know, right?
Cuss words for kids. Go
You know
ahead.
what I'm saying? That's not what it is, Vito. But it's basically me sort of showing kids like the women who have helped me get to where I am, and it's called Unapologetically You.
Okay.
Right? And so, like, teaching kids how to be unapologetic, something I know a little bit about.
Yeah,
See, not outspoken.
Unapologetic.
See what I'm saying? Right? Yeah. You're like tomato.
That's a black woman's term.
Yeah, right.
I'm
So,
not outspoken.
I'm unapologetic. That's right. I got boundaries. Yes, that's what it is. So I have that. I also am launching a podcast in the fall. That will be about sports, politics, and culture. You know, the things everybody loves mixed together.
Jam them all in there.
Jam it all in there.
Sports is a microcosm of society.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a sports and politics podcast that's coming in the fall. And really proud of this Simone Biles documentary that I was a creative consultant and did some writing for. That'll be out on Netflix preceding the Olympics, so it should be out on Netflix soon. People have probably already seen the trailer. It's wonderful. Simone, just one of the greatest athletes of all time, and she has an incredible story, an incredible journey she's been on herself. But just looking to get further entrenched in this filmmaking, documentary producer role because, look, this place only gonna last so long. It's only gonna be here. So I'm pivoting to things behind the camera, even though there's some on-camera projects that I have in the pipeline. But I think at some point within the next probably 5 years, I will fully pivot to being behind the camera. Doing some directing, producing.
That's the title right there. Mogul.
Well,
Media mogul.
When
That's it.
I need the paycheck to reflect that.
It's coming. It's coming.
I
Man,
appreciate that.
we appreciate you.
Thank you all.
Thank you for being here with us, man.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been enlightening.
I'm gonna still get Detroit on you. I just want you to know that. Like,
Why you get Detroit on me? Look, I lived in Detroit.
We didn't influence you.
I was up in Birmingham, Michigan.
That ain't Detroit.
I know it. No, it's not.
See, that's probably why you get that
Birmingham
experience.
was nice, though. It was nice.
It is nice. You know?
All of Detroit is nice, E.
You gotta get them potholes together, man. That freeway.
E, come on, man. Let's end the
By
podcast.
the way, LA
freeway?
is way worse than Detroit.
No.
Yes, they are. Oh my God.
The potholes?
Listen, I'm like, was a grenade let off here? Jesus, like, come on now. No, you ain't gonna do my city like that.
I like Detroit, man. Okay.
Yeah,
it's pass through.
we gonna see. We ain't gonna jump you. Come outside.
No, I'm not coming outside. I'm not coming outside.
Well, we love you, and we thank you.
Thank you.
y'all.
Jemele Hill, y'all.